As an aspiring book illustrator and lifelong fan of storybooks, I have a personal interest in the publishing industry and how changes to it affect not only bookmakers and illustrators but booksellers too. It is easy to be seduced by the low prices of online book retailers and large chain stores, but where does this leave brick and mortar independent bookshops? In this video essay, I will explore the place of independent bookshops on our UK high streets in the 21st century, the apparent cycle of growth and decline in the sector, the impact of e-books, and the ways in which independent bookshops are surviving and thriving despite the challenges of fast-moving digital technology and changing consumer habits. Against a background of recession in the UK that affected the purchasing power of the general population, changes took place in publishing and bookselling that changed the industry hugely. The collapse of the Net Book Agreement in 1997 brought to an end the fixed retail prices of books originally introduced by publishers and booksellers in Britain to protect their own profit. It was abandoned by the book retailers with the largest shares in the market, who saw more potential for profit by buying and selling larger quantities of books at a lower price, in a way that independent bookshops generally could not compete with. With the huge growth in online shopping and the creation of electronic book reading devices, the following years saw a huge change in the UK market share leaders. In 2009, bookshops held the majority share, 46% of the market share, compared to the 21% held by internet-only sellers. However, just 3 years later, in 2012, internet-only retailers overtook bookshops in the UK for the first time. And by 2013, internet-only retailers had increased their majority to 48%, while the share held by bookshops decreased to 31%. While it is important to note that the bookshop statistics are not specific to independent bookshops, they show a shift in the public's book buying habits. It seems that in the space of just 4 years, the UK public became so engaged with the new digital book format that bookshops are struggling to compete. While internet-only book retailers were increasing their majority of the UK market share, the number of independent high street bookshops in the UK was falling sharply. Between 2005 and 2014, 500 independent bookshops closed, equating to a loss of 1/3 of all the UK's independent bookshops during this period. Around 2014 then, many news outlets reported the demise of the independent bookshop, and it seemed that they would become a thing of the past. And based on data, it's easy to understand why. But that wasn't the end of the story. Fast forward to 2017, when in December The Guardian reported that for the first time since 1995, the number of independent bookshops in the UK increased. At the end of 2017, there was one more independent bookshop than there had been at the end of 2016. With such a tiny increase, we must be cautious when we ask, is this growth a sign of things to come? How and why has this increase occurred? Perhaps we can look to recent data about ebooks and physical book sales to begin to understand the change. Data provided by the industry research group Nielsen in 2016 found that while £100 million more was spent on books in the UK than in the previous year, ebook sales declined by 4%, while sales through shops increased by 7%. Although this data is not specific to independent bookshops and does not look at the sale of physical books online, it suggests a definite inclination back towards physical book formats over digital. As part of my research, I went to Bedford to meet Rachel Rogan, founder and owner of Rogan's Books, an independent feminist children's bookshop. Discussing the seeming contrast of digital and physical books, she suggested,
I think it's like lots of things in life. Something new comes along and everybody goes, oh, this makes my life easier and this is cheaper. And then you do it for a while and then you realise that there's something lacking in it. And it takes a while for that to happen. It can take a few years, it takes a few cycles for people to go, well, I am getting this cheaper, but am I getting as fulfilled from it? No. And just everybody's been pushed down the same path, everybody's buying the same thing. There's nothing interesting or unique about the experience.
The digital cycle that Rachel discusses can perhaps be illustrated by research by Ofcom around the idea of digital detoxing. In their 2016 Communication Market Report, Ofcom suggested that 34% of adult internet users in the UK, equivalent to 15 million people, had sought a period offline. Perhaps, as Rachel suggests, in the book market the public are re-recognising the benefits of the physical book format in addition to, or as an alternative to, the online or digital experience, which has undeniably become part of our way of life. What successful brick-and-mortar independent bookshops can do is find their place and shout about their unique value as a non-digital option. In her 2017 article, Gemma O'Brien makes the point that while the internet can allow access to everything, the problem for consumers is knowing who to trust to make a recommendation. Presenting a business as a trustworthy and expert source of goods is a challenge that certainly faces online retailers who simply cannot offer the face-to-face interaction provided by high street shops. To a certain degree, this is also an issue for supermarkets selling discounted books. Despite offering very competitive prices, they do not offer the same level of expertise as a bookseller. Independent booksellers handpick their stock. They are able to carefully select high-quality titles and make informed decisions about what books will be successful in their shops, based on knowledge of their customers and their locality. The value of a knowledgeable real-life bookseller is perhaps becoming even greater since the number of titles on offer, particularly online, increases. The accessibility of self-publishing and online selling platforms for unpublished authors has created an incredible rise in the volume of books being created. Discussing this phenomenon, Catherine Nensel explains, the global nature of digital publishing intensifies the problem of discoverability. As self-publishing becomes the norm and ebooks are available indefinitely on platforms like Amazon, perhaps it is fair to suggest that browsing for a book online, rather than knowing beforehand the title you are looking for, is becoming increasingly difficult for consumers as they navigate a saturated digital marketplace. Perhaps the combination of a boom in online shopping platforms and the self-publishing trend have created a desire for the very opposite of what they are. Maybe shoppers are seeking a real human bookseller with knowledge and the time to spend to recommend a good book. Not only are independent booksellers in a position to hand select and curate a small and relevant range of books that suit their customers, they are in a unique position to provide a social experience too, which O'Brien refers to as social connectivity. While independent bookshops provide a special experience for their customers, social connectivity suggests a relationship, a two-way connection between the bookseller and the customer, or the shop and the community. The Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development defines social capital as networks together with shared norms, values and understandings that facilitate cooperation within or among groups. By thinking about this broad definition in relation to independent bookshops, maybe we can better grasp their value. Independent bookshops have an intrinsic link to the community in which they operate. While an independent bookshop will often provide its local community with bespoke knowledge, hand-selected products and time spent nurturing social interactions, it also thrives on the engagement of that same community it provides for. By crafting a positive and unique experience for its community, a successful independent bookshop makes itself an asset to the local area. That mutually beneficial relationship is what I understand as social connectivity. In her report about post-recession high street shopping in the UK, in 2011, Mary Porter said, "I believe that our high streets can be lively, dynamic, exciting and social places that give a sense of belonging and trust to a community. I also fundamentally believe that once we invest in and create social capital in the heart of our communities, the economic capital will follow." In light of the 2008 recession, Porter sees the social capital of shops as a foundation for economic survival. By building a positive social experience into their business model, independent shop owners can create a place that shoppers want to be, and therefore a place that they choose to spend their money. As part of her research, O'Brien volunteered at October Books in Southampton. In her article, she shares feedback from shoppers. "A sense of community is important to me. There's a danger of everything becoming very commercialised, branded, at a level at which we feel we don't have any sort of control," one said. Although these comments are obviously not a reflection of the wider population's view of independent bookshops, they illustrate nicely how the local community can play a crucial role in the success of a local business, while the bookshop is a symbol of the value of that community. Simply put, O'Brien says, booksellers with high levels of social capital may be able to survive better. Even famous bookshop chains have been inspired by the independent bookshop model. When he took on the role of managing director at Waterstones in 2011, James Daunt was tasked with turning around the fortune of a company that had not been profitable since 2008. Daunt took the decision to end the centralised bulk purchasing of books in favour of giving individual shop managers the power to select and order stock for their own shop. Talking on BBC Radio 4 in 2011, Daunt said, "Let our booksellers create individual shops which have their own identity, their own character, and which can champion their very own titles." Daunt, who had previously built a small chain of 6 bookshops in London, recognised a problem with treating every UK store and its customers in exactly the same way. Despite the discounts and deals that centralised bulk purchasing made available to their customers, these offers, and indeed the range of books to choose from, were exactly the same in all parts of the country, but buying habits were very different. By allowing local store managers to respond to the buying habits and needs of their local population, Daunt saw a way to improve the retail experience for customers. In 2016, Waterstones reached profitability again, the first time since the 2008 financial crisis, an impressive turnaround of fortune for the previously failing brand. In a more controversial move in 2017, Waterstones opened 3 unbranded bookshops in empty stores in Harpenden, Rye and Southwold. Talking about his decision, Daunt said, "If you want to enhance a high street, you need to act as an independent." Once again, it is interesting that Daunt so believes in the independent bookshop model that he sees it as something that is worthy of imitating. But is Waterstone simply trying to capitalise on the most important and fundamental aspects of the independent bookshop identity for their own economic gain? Interestingly, another 2017 Guardian article on the subject, which interviewed independent bookshop owners local to the new unbranded stores, offers a positive spin on these developments. Bookshop owners themselves cite the reoccupation of previously empty shop units and a positive impact on local housing prices prices as two reasons why these unbranded Waterstone shops could be seen as a positive addition to the towns. Back in 2011, Mary Portis's review of the UK high street states, "The only hope our high streets have of surviving in the future is to recognise what's happening and deliver something new." And perhaps this is exactly what Daunt's Waterstones was doing by opening a new style of bookshop in 2017. They have recognised the benefits of the independent shopping environment, and they are trying something new in the hope that it will bring economic return. Independent bookshops have been innovative enough to inspire the managing director of a national chain of bookshops to imitate them. The fact that Waterstones looks towards independent bookshops for inspiration is very much a sign of their value to our communities and on the high streets. It seems that ambitious independent bookshops are adapting to and benefiting from developments in the industry and technology too. An example of this is how many independent booksellers are now carefully crafting a strong digital brand, using websites and social media platforms as ways to communicate with their audiences and sell their products. In their 2017 annual report, the Booksellers Association shared a case study. Katie Clapham of Storytellers Inc. in Lancashire said, "Twitter has been instrumental in helping us make a name for ourselves within the industry. Facebook connects us with our customers locally, and whenever I put a new photo on Instagram, we have it linked, so it immediately shows on our website homepage, which means content is refreshed there without me having to update it." For independent bookshop businesses, these digital developments are surely priceless in their efforts to publicise their value in an industry full of cheaper alternatives for potential customers. During my interview of Rachel Rogan, I asked her how important the internet has been to the success of Rogan's books.
Social media, hugely important. It's absolutely fundamental to the success of the shop. When books come in, I take pictures of them and I share them on Instagram and auto share them through Twitter and Facebook, and the take-up is incredible. It actually results in sales, very easy to track sales, and I think it's probably one of the most important tools that I have.
The very fact that Rachel personally updates her social media profiles is something that strikes me as being very important to her brand. She is the face of Rogan's books. It is she who you meet when you go into the shop, and she is also the person who writes the blogs and updates the Facebook page. She makes the whole Rogan's books experience personal and complete, and so she is integral to the brand. This makes her business feel trustworthy in a way that a large corporation would find hard to achieve. It seems that survival as an independent bookshop owner on the 21st century high streets of the UK is about adaptability to change, and the ability to identify and build your own place despite it. It is about recognising the constant shifting in the industry and developing and reinventing in order to stay relevant. In the Porter's review, Mary Porter is clear when she says that her report is not about nostalgia, nor is it about sentimental plea to nurture and protect small shopkeepers above all else. The days of a high street populated simply by independent butchers, bakers and candlestick makers are, except in the most exceptional circumstances, over. She goes on to explain that the purpose of her review is to inspire people to seize the opportunity to innovate and embrace the change that's necessary. While ebooks, internet shopping, supermarkets and huge high street brands are almost certainly here to stay, independent bookshops have proved in the last 10 years that despite highs and lows, economic crashes and store closures, they are trailblazers in their field, adaptable, innovative, resilient and here to stay, and they intend to thrive despite obvious threats. By their very nature, independents have a secret weapon, and if they continue to nurture their social capital, they're in a brilliant place to respond to the needs of their local community and make themselves essential, not only to the shopping experience, but to the social experience too.